Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on ThriveCAST. My name is Shannon Singler, and today I have the pleasure of hosting Jeremy Ortiz. He's the visionary and founder and CEO of Archis Architects. Jeremy has really been shaping skylines since 1999, but he established his firm in 2011 and since then has really just been delivering unique and relevant design solutions across various sectors, including commercial, residential, education, hospitality. Am I missing any?
There's a lot more. We do pretty much everything. It's
Okay,
one of our
so
taglines. We can do it all.
he runs the gamut A to Z. Well, Jeremy is a licensed architect in multiple states, including New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, California, Arizona, and Georgia. So without further ado, I want to introduce you and let's dive into the mind of an architect that's been crafting spaces that really inspire and innovate. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and really excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Archis Architects and what are you guys all about?
Sure. Archis Architects was birthed in, like you said, 2011. I had always been very entrepreneurial. And when I first started in architecture, I was actually in Austin, native New Mexican, but moved to Austin and was working out there with some really fantastic high-end residential firms. And I had it in my mind that I was going to start my own high-end residential firm. A series of events, I moved back to New Mexico. And I just realized New Mexico had a different setup, a different just fabric. You know, every state, every town has its own fabric of how it works and what works best and what, doesn't work as well. And it really wasn't a good time or place to do a high-end residential firm. So, at the time I moved into doing schoolwork with a commercial firm and got just thrown right into the mix of that, learned a lot about schools and commercial spaces, commercial buildings in general, which is a very different animal than residential, and just really started getting exposed to more and more types of things. And we had the downturn in 2010, and there were a lot of things going on, a lot of changes, and I find myself in a place where it was just time to open up my own firm. And so through a course of events, I ended up doing that, and it was, as most people remember, a very tough time, probably the worst time to open up a new business. As I did that, I really found just a cool synergy that I was able to tap into. I worked contract for several other architects while I was building my business. And in that, I got exposure to multiple types of building systems and just building types. And the breadth and width of the amount of projects that I was exposed to and began to master really grew very quickly. And I found that when I was within my fourth and fifth year of running my own business, I had really built just a fantastic foundation and a huge toolkit to be able to service so many types of clients. And I really believe that that's what has allowed us to weather the economic times of, the waves that hit, over and over again. It's a different wave that hits you, but it's another wave that comes. And so just as soon as something dries up, we're doing something else because we're able to do it. And, it's funny, I talk about how every year has its own theme architecturally. Back in COVID, it was medical office, and then it was metal buildings, and then it was retail and restaurant. And it's weird how you just have these waves of these certain types of projects that hit on an annual basis. And so we're like, okay, well, we've done these. Now let's slip into this category and let's just start working on these types of projects. So that's where I get, unique and relevant design solutions, because we are able to really tap into my extensive knowledge base and experience and really tackle every project that comes our way. And we literally have probably 15 different types of projects in the office at any given time. And it's exciting. It keeps us going. It keeps us from getting bored. It's always challenging us. We truly haven't done it all, but we sure are tapping a pretty broad spectrum of building types within the industry.
So what's your favorite type of project? If you've tapped into so many, what do you love doing the most?
I knew you were going to ask that. And, it's hard because I do love residential work, but residential is very time consuming and it's a lot of detail and it's a very emotional process because you're typically dealing with people's dreams and they're very tied into that and they're very, very emotional, when it comes to it. So I do love that because there's a lot of creativity there that you don't often get to even tap into on the commercial side. I love doing educational projects because we're able to meet the needs of children and their demand for a quality education, and we can do that architecturally. And I just love really great overall design projects. I love development projects because you can take a bunch of different aspects and roll them into one project and have a lot of fun with them. So I don't know that I have one that really stands out, but I would say those are probably some of my top choices.
All right, I love that. So you've expanded Archis Architects from Albuquerque to Oklahoma City. What were kind of the biggest challenges of scaling across multiple locations, and how did you overcome that?
Sure, it's been quite a journey. Still on that. We've been in Oklahoma City for a few years now, really starting to capture a footprint here, which is exciting and very encouraging. When I was working in New Mexico and my firm was in its fledgling state, an architect I was working with, he moved states. And I was able to learn a lot of things about how his business did and did not work after he had left and broadened that footprint because you have to put personal resources into the next place that you're going, right? What you can't leave behind, what you still have going for you. And so I really thought long and hard about how I would do that. And really the crux of it is having a good team. I had a fantastic team that I had built in New Mexico, and I felt like I could leave them at larger amounts of time, and the ship would still be going the right direction and everybody would be doing their jobs. And so without a solid team behind you, there's no way that you can do it. And I've talked to several people like, hey, I want to expand. I'd like to, broaden my footprint as well. And I'm like, well, do you have a good team? Do you have something to leave behind that you can check on? And then really you have to go back and forth. You can't just say, all right, I'm going to this state and I'm going to start something new. Or I'm going to this town and I'm going to start something new. And I may see you in 6 months and hopefully you guys are doing well. It's a daily check-in. We have weekly check-ins. We're utilizing all the fantastic resources the technology that have come out of COVID. There's a lot of bad things about COVID, but there's a lot of good things too. And the interconnectability that we have now through technology is fantastic. And that's been a huge tool for us to be able to scale outward. And then just really having a good net to land in. You really got to know where you're going and what it's going to provide for you. And so I really looked hard into this section of the country. And I was looking at, demographics and movement. There was a lot of movement. It had been 2021, 22, all over the country. And, what was working, what wasn't working. And so, yeah, really just stepping into a place that I knew was not going to be hard soil to till. Because I had come out of the Texas area, Austin in particular, I knew that mentality. I knew that type of genre. Oklahoma isn't a whole lot different when it comes to building type and genre, similar mentalities and approaches to life. And so I had an idea what I was coming back into and really worked out to that effect, even to a greater degree than I had hoped in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, coming with a plan, coming with a strategy is huge. And then staying in touch with your team, building that team as you need to, and just being fluid. I mean, I told my family, I was like, look, I'm going to be traveling a lot. So stick with me. We'll work together on this, but know that I'm going to be all over the place. And I have been. I enjoy it. It's been great.
So do you split your time between New Mexico and Oklahoma? Or?
I do. I kind of see how the pendulum is swinging for each office and spend whatever time I need to there. Priority is, as far as time goes right now, is more in Oklahoma just because I don't have a real big client base out here. So building a team here, building a client base is key. But we maintain well in New Mexico. I go back quite a bit on a monthly basis. I'm there for a while and we do what we need to do. We keep our clients happy. We meet as we need to. Sometimes I got to get on a plane or get in a car and just go and, pick up a need for a client meeting. And, sometimes I drive out there or I fly out there and then the meeting gets canceled and that's okay. You do what you have to. But, it's all about taking care of our clients and making them aware that we are there to meet their needs and we're going to do a great job. And it doesn't matter where we're at the time, but we can do that. And, one testament to that is we do work in California. California's tough on so many levels, but we've been able to service our California clients, pretty well. And we rarely go to California. It's a big trip. Clients don't really want to, spend all that extra money, to have meetings. And so when we need to go, we do. And there's important things that we have to do that require those trips. But again, in this digital age that we're in, there's so much that we can do remotely. We've done projects in Georgia, and I haven't set foot in Georgia for those because we've got really good boots on the ground that get us the information we need, and we coordinate and we work at it as the project requires.
So you had mentioned you're building your client base in Oklahoma City. So, many architects struggle with business development. So what strategies have you used that, is consistently attracting new clients to hopefully scale your firm in Oklahoma City?
Sure. I'm one of those people, I tend to be in the right place at the right time.
Oh, you're lucky. That's so awesome.
I am,
Not everybody's lucky.
I think I'm favored in that scenario. When I first started my business, I was like, I'm going to advertise. I took out ads. I did this, I did that. And wherever I could, I went to chamber events, and I didn't really get anything. But what I noticed is the work came from me doing a good job. And so as I would do a good job, take care of our clients, meet or exceed their expectations, they talk. People talk. And whatever community you're in, it is small. You could be in Houston. There's a small community in Houston. There's a small community in Oklahoma City, small community in New Mexico. If you do a good job and you're consistently performing, you rise to the top very quickly. There's a lot of opportunity for mediocrity in this world, and I don't want to be a part of that. And I really push my team that we are not going to do mediocrity. We are going to do things well. We're going to do them consistently. We're going to do them thoroughly. And we get repeat clients. We've got clients that I've had since the beginning. We've got new clients that show up all the time, but it's usually like, hey, so-and-so gave me your name. They said you take good care of me. I need an architect. I need a team. Can you help? Yeah, absolutely. And we'll show up and we'll help.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's very much relationship driven business. And regardless of time, it's always going to really kind of settle on relationships, and making sure that those are fostered appropriately is always going to be the winner in this industry.
It really is.
Over and over again.
Yeah. And having the desire to build a relationship when it comes your way too, right? I'm not really an outgoing person. I would rather just hang out and do my own thing. But when I'm in an event, when I have an opportunity, I'm the best person that I can be. And I try to do what I can. And I've got a network of people around me who also fight for me. They're like, hey, you need an architect? Talk to this guy. You need a team? Here they are. We've worked with them. We know them, whatever it is. In fact, we've got a huge project that's in the development phase. Hopefully we'll be breaking ground in a couple months. But I had made a relationship and just loosely, discussing life and things. And it was a realtor and I'm an architect. And like, well, maybe our paths are crossed, at some point. And these other two people, totally foreign to me, were talking about doing this new project and they needed somebody, and she called him and he said, well, I've got an architect for you. Call this guy. He seems to be great. I haven't worked with him yet, but what I've seen, what our conversations have been, I think he'll do a good job. And now here I am in the middle of this huge project, and there you go. So
word of mouth is your best friend. I love that. That's the way it works. So how does your background in architecture really shape the way you approach client projects? Because you work on a lot of government, with government agencies and medical clients. What is your approach to those types of client projects that kind of keeps everything moving and smooth going?
Sure. So I'm one of those people that really straddles the line well between art and technical business side of things. You tend to have in the architecture world either very, very artistic, not really well at managing, business, or somebody who's just business, and they have, maybe it's a good business and they do well, but there's not beautiful stuff. And there's limitations in there. And of course that these are broad generalizations. There's, 50 shades in the middle of it, but I tend to bridge that well. And so I've learned over the years how to balance balance, difference between spending time on the artistic portion and really managing a project, managing to the budget, managing to the deadlines, and just getting it done. I can do a pretty good job of putting my pencil down. I'm not always happy with it, but I know when it's time to put it down. And so, I don't know. I'm very calculated person. I'm always looking 10 steps ahead. When I'm driving down the road, I know what's 10 steps ahead. When I'm, looking at a project, I'm planning, the other phases before I get there. Some people don't do that. Some people can't do that. Some people are very, by the moment, as we go type of a thing. That'll get you into trouble on a government project. That'll get you into trouble on, anything of substantial need for planning. And so, I try to instill in my team that we've got to plan ahead. We've got to keep looking at these things. We've got to keep communications up. We can't just get behind our computer and design, or get out and design without staying fully integrated in every aspect. And so we're talking about schedules. We're talking about budgets. We're talking about, what do the engineers have? What do they not have? Why don't they have it? They should have had it 2 weeks ago, that type of thing. And so it's really a juggling act. It's a lot of moving parts. Sure is one of those ironic professions because for me in particular, I went into architecture because I hated every different subject in school. I didn't enjoy school. And I did well at it. I can work hard and I can get things done and I got good grades, but I was just like, I don't like English. I don't like math. I don't like science. I don't like history. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And, the funny irony of life is architecture, you do everything. There is no subject you don't do.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard on one of your other podcasts, somebody was talking about needing to be a psychologist. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a counselor. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a psychologist. I got to know science. I got to know history. I got to know how to write. I got to know how to speak. It's crazy. It's just, but I think as an adult and as somebody who gets into a profession they love, you embrace those things when they apply. When I'm in 10th grade and we're talking about algebra, calculus, I don't give a flip because I'm like, I can't see that far, right? I can't see that's going to benefit me in life. But then you get behind a profession that demands something that maybe you didn't love so much, but now you learn to love it. Public speaking, I hated it. And by the time I was 2 years into architecture, I can speak to anybody and to any group of people now because you have to do it, but it's also part of who you are. And so if I can cast a vision to people, then I'm going to enjoy doing it. So, it's interesting how all that comes together.
That's awesome that you bring that up because, you have to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist. You have to be able to walk that line. And that often requires convincing like multiple stakeholders in multiple aspects of the project. So how do you tailor your approach when working with like decision makers, like developers versus government officials versus end users? I mean, what is your psychological game there to help kind of keep that project moving?
Well, it's learning to know the room, right? Who's in the room and who truly are they? But also who do they believe that they are? And sometimes you have people in the room that think they're more of a decision maker than, they are. We run into this a lot with schools, because we try to get committees together of all the different users. So we want parents, we want teachers, we want janitorial staff, we want administrators, obviously we want students. And then we've got the real decision makers, right? We're the principals and the superintendents and those people. And so you get in and you take the information that comes your way for what it is, and it all has value. Nobody that adds something doesn't have value, but you take that and then you have to weigh that against, okay, what is their actual level of decision making in this? Yes, they want A, B, and C, but according to our true owners of the project, facilitators of the project, we can really only afford or accommodate maybe A and B. So you let everybody know that their opinion is valued because it is, and you take it all into account, and then you put it in the blender and you sift out, what works and what doesn't work. We have a very close relationship with a facility master plan company, and they do all different types of planning, community planning, school planning, city, county planning, all kinds of things. And so I've learned over the years as we've worked together how they work, and they really capture the desires and needs that come from the users. And then they put that together into this fantastic plan of, how to strategize to get the project done that needs to get done with the money that we have. And if we need to go get more money, how do we do that? And so you have so many stakeholders that all have a voice. And then it's putting it together and being, okay, here's our here's our needs assessment, and we rank them in priority, and then we utilize the resources we have to get those priorities ticked off the list. And sometimes things don't make it on the list. They got to get pushed into the next cycle or, something like that. And not everybody's always happy. We go into it knowing that you can't make everybody happy all the time, but you can definitely do your best to meet as many needs as possible. One thing that we do as we go back to certain projects is we just ask questions like, hey, how did this work out for you? What's successful? What is not successful? This happens more with school districts than anything else because they're a pretty good repeat client. Some of our others, they love what we do and we just keep doing it. And they tell us on the next project, we're going to change this. This restaurant didn't quite work this way, but on this one, let's modify this area, etc. So just really, we listen. We have to always be listening. But the worst thing that an architect can do is put their head down and do what they want to do and not listen. I mean, we're hired because of what we bring, and we're not supposed to be, led by the nose to do exactly what somebody wants, but we need to know how to listen, take into account, and really get to the crux of what somebody's asking. This is a great example on the residential side. We'll have our clients give us as much as they can as far as clippings, Instagram things, or Pinterest things, house stuff. Give us whatever you have, and then tell us what you like about it. Because they might send you a photo of this beautiful house. They may hate the design of the house. Maybe it's not even the style, but there's the quality of light that they like, or this little teeny moment, this little vignette here in the corner that really gets them emotionally. Those are the things we have to pull out of people. It's much easier to put your finger on that, on a residential project. It's a little harder to do on a commercial project or a public project.
Yeah.
Where you got to meet everybody in the middle. You can't design for one specific person type of a thing, but it's still there. And you still have to do that. You still have to see those things for what they are and then figure out how to utilize those to really meet the needs of the client.
So thinking back, if you could go back to when you first started your firm, what's like one business mistake you would hands down avoid moving forward if you had to do it over again?
The biggest mistake would be not learning how to manage on the owner side, the books. And most architects don't know anything about business. And every time I tell somebody, like, what do you need to do before you become an architect? And especially if they're in school, I tell them minor in business.
Yeah.
Take business classes. You don't need to master anything in business, but you need to know how taxes work. You need to know how to manage your books. You need to know how to really break down budgets, those types of things, project ahead. You need to be able to speak tax language, because I had huge blunders. When you start your business, you're scraping and you're walking away with, cents and dollars for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you get a project and it's a good project and you're like, oh my gosh, I've made all this money. And you take the money, and if you don't know what you're doing, you spend more of it than you should.
Right.
And then you get this tax bill and you're like, that's just what happened to me. I had this tax bill. I was like, I don't have this money. We just barely made it, but on paper, it's more than it needs to be. So I spent a lot of effort and time learning how to do that right. It was probably 7 or 8 years into my business where I really, truly started understanding the do's and do nots of that stuff. And somebody could really take a wrong turn and lose their entire business, if they're not doing it right. Luckily, I had people around me who were kind of guiding me as we went. But man, going into it, already understanding that stuff, that would have been a game changer, huge game changer.
You gotta kind of fake it until you make it, right? And hopefully you don't make too big of a mistake that you can't recuperate. That's really good advice, I think, for any business owner, regardless of the industry that you're in.
Really, truly.
I don't think people who don't own businesses truly understand the grit that goes into running a business and what it takes to be able to do it successfully. For those that have figured it out, it's like, a gold star for you, because it's not easy. So I can definitely respect that.
Yeah, it's a unique person that runs a business. I mean, I know you've talked about this on your other podcasts, and it's kind of a general understanding, I guess, if you really think about it. But business owners, they don't work 8-hour days.
Right. Never.
Sometimes there's an 8-hour day here and there, but there's so much that has to happen in a business to keep it alive, to keep it going, and scale that up. That changes even more because now you're managing people. Now you're managing multiple locations. Now your taxes get more complicated. Everything is always changing. You can't just, learn something and then you're done as far as running a business goes. It's always changing. There's always new opportunities. There's things that don't work anymore, new strategies. And then just, being able to think both macro and micro at the same time is huge. You have to be able to do that. And it's very fanciful idea of like, hey, I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to run it. I'm going to, nobody to be accountable to, any of that other stuff. But there's a lot of things that you give up to do that. And so it's a tough thing to do. It's very rewarding if you're able to do it on multiple levels. It's very rewarding. For me, one of the most fantastic things I like is I'm able to help build other people's lives and other people's families and support, others in a way that I couldn't do before. So that's always fun to be able to think about how I'm in multiple ways impacting people's lives, not just in the buildings that we design and see built, but on a daily basis, through interactions in the office, through, interactions with clients and engineers and city governments, those types of things. Every relationship, every interaction is an opportunity to impact people. And as a business owner, I feel like you get a broader reach into that type of thing than you would otherwise.
So architecture is really a mixture of art and business, right? We've kind of already touched upon that a little bit. But how do you communicate the value of good design to clients who really might only be focused on cost? And I can only think of schools because everything comes down to the final penny. But how do you communicate the value of really thoughtful, really good design to clients who just really are only focused on the bottom dollar?
I'll tell you, that's an eternal struggle. It really is. We live in an age that has a lot of things hammering against that. You turn on the TV and there's 50 different home improvement shows that you get to pick from. And all of them show that you can do on a shoestring budget within 2 weeks, you can do this fantastic home, which we all know behind the scenes isn't even true.
Yeah, not true.
On the residential side in particular, we always have a battle with home builders because the misunderstanding is that a home builder is giving design for free. And so somebody comes to us and we give them, hey, this is our design fee. Yes, it's a lot, but this is what you get. And like, well, the home builder, they're not charging me a design fee. It's all rolled in. I'm like, well, exactly. It's rolled in. You don't see it. They still have to spend a bunch of time, a bunch of effort. And then we live in a society where there's a lot of mediocrity. You look at a lot of buildings and they're just enough. There's a lot of, cookie cutter homes and they're just enough. And granted, a lot of it is people can't afford. And that's a very understandable thing. Not everybody can afford to do architecture is to degrees kind of a luxury service.
Yeah.
Unless it's required, like in commercial, it does become more of a luxury service. And so we try to be careful to balance that between what people can afford and what, they really need. I would argue that the need is always there to have good quality architecture. I can step into a space and I know immediately if it was designed architecturally or if it was just designed by somebody who just wanted to build something. Really taking the time to educate our clients on what goes for us to be able to do what we do. For me to be able to sit down and in 5 minutes cast a vision for you that you can otherwise cast, that's because of the years and years of training that I have and all of the background that has gone into it. I often see people have comments about, they see a finalized floor plan and it's full of dimensions, full of notes, all of these symbols and everything. And like, I don't understand how you can do that. But for me, it's like, well, it's one piece at a time, right? You go in and you do the line work and you sculpt that and you craft that in your mind. I do it in my mind before I'm putting anything on paper. And then when I start to put things on paper, I'm filtering it out. Back in the days, I would build 3D models. I had the benefit of being right on that cusp where people were still doing hand models, hand drafting. AutoCAD was in the works, but not everybody was using it. Renderings, which is something that I still bring to the firm if people want it. And then we moved into the computer stuff and now it's all 3D modeling, which is great. And you can do amazing things in amazing amounts of time, with that. But it's like each one of those things is a layer that gets put on there. And then by the time you're done, you've got this beautiful composition. And it's not just, well, I've been in a space that was 15 by 18 and it had this finish and this windows and that's what made it beautiful. No, it was all the different little pieces and parts of the composition that came together to make it beautiful. So some clients never get it. Some clients, we just end up, delivering them to wherever they're at. And that's as far as we go. We've got others. We've got a fantastic client who, every time he talks to me, he's like, you guys understand it. You get it. You do such beautiful stuff. I don't want to dissuade from what you're doing. Obviously, we've got a budget, but give us what you got, show us what you can do. We know that you can do it. That's the kind of client that, truly understands and appreciates and is willing to pay for the services that we provide. I mean, I wish we could do it for, next to nothing, but, everybody's got to eat. And so
Yeah.
we have to straddle that all the time, but it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. We have just a scenario around us of kind of the microwave society too, where people can throw things up really fast. And, I did it here and I did it there. And there's the trends. Oh, the trends drive me crazy. 10 or 15 years ago, the trend was like a 5-year trend.
Yeah.
Maybe you could stretch out to 10-year if it was a really good trend, but now it's like a yearly trend. And
Yeah.
it's impossible to design against a trend, because
Yeah.
number one, we may not even be considered in the trend. So, we're always trying to design to something that's going to be kind of a classical. It's going
Timeless.
to supersede time,
Yeah.
and it's going to do that by quality. And, you can change paint colors, you can change wall finishes, you can change the hardware, you can change all the decorations that are in a space, but you can't really easily change the bones of the space. And so we want to create good bones, good light, nice orientation. If we're going to design on a site, we're going to capture views, number one, daylighting. If there's breezes, we're capturing that. If there's site access, we're capturing all of that. Drives me crazy when somebody wants me to design them a house without a site. I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't. I can't in good conscience design a home for you on a site that we don't know about. And the same thing with a commercial building. I'm like, what? I can't design, if you got a jack in the box and it doesn't really matter, that's fine. That works. Let's find a site for that. But if you want something that's going to help you build a successful business that people want to go to, you need to know, where you're going to be and what that needs to look like and how it needs to be oriented and what finishes are going to be best. So many businesses start and it's a great business, but they go out of business because the building they're in is terrible. They're in a strip mall or they're in something with a character that's completely different than what they're trying to sell. And so they'll really be a lost opportunity of something that could have been great and ends up, in mediocrity forever because they didn't have the right building for it. And so if we can help craft each building one at a time, again, unique and relevant design solutions, right, for every scenario, then we feel like we've brought success to whatever the project is that we're trying to help out with.
So what sets Archis Architects apart from all of your competition? What makes you guys different when bidding on a job and they end up choosing you versus the competition?
Well, I go back to our level of deliverable that we really strive to provide. You can put a building together with a pretty minimal set of drawings, or you can put a building together with a more detailed and uniquely set up construction document package. And that's what we strive for. Make it that way. We will do the extra detailing that we need to do to make a project beautiful. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that we will just work with our clients to really provide the best fit for what they need. I'm not going to bring in a heavy hand any preconceived notions that I have. I will bring my preconceived notions because I can look at something and pretty quickly come up with, I believe, some great ideas on what the solution should be. But if I put that out there and it's not accepted, then I'm going to move away from it and I'm going to redirect how it goes. We have a lot of clients who are very educated, have a really great sense of taste, and they bring an initial concept and we're like, yeah, let's do that. Let's run with that concept. We'll take it to the next level for you and we'll make it a success. And we've had multiple projects like that. And so, I feel like for us, it's a combination of we do a really great job and we listen. And we also strive really hard to get our projects done within the parameters given to us, which is on time and in budget. Those are huge.
Yeah.
It's not, if a project is going to be over budget, I will tell people ahead of time. And I've lost projects because they've told me that it was too much, or they didn't believe it, or they could do it for less. And I'm like, that's fine if you think you can, but I've been doing this long enough that I know the minimum effort that it's going to take to get this done. And I'd rather tell you now beforehand than I give you a project that's $1 million over budget and now you're blaming me for it because I didn't tell you, right? So, we lose projects, and we lose them because people can't catch the vision. People don't like, what we have to say about the project. I tend to be very truthful up front on what a project is, what it's going to take, if it's going to be easy or not. And we've had, multiple projects die on the vine, and a lot of it has been good. They needed to die on the vine because the client wasn't prepared to put the investment into, maybe in that specific location, even what needed to happen. And so even if we lose a project, that's okay, because in the end, we've done the better good of helping somebody maybe not go bankrupt or not end up, in a scenario that they can't get themselves out of. And it's sad to see when somebody's overstretched and they don't realize it, and then they're in so far they can't get out of it. That hurts. It really does.
Yeah.
And I don't like to be a part of any of that if I can help it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm a true believer that everything happens for a reason. You just have to be able to see that in front of you in order to come to realization that that's what it is, right? So
Yeah.
to each his own. So only a couple more questions for you. How do you foster innovation and creativity within your firm while staying efficient and profitable without going down that rabbit hole of all the shiny, all the...
Yeah, it's tough, and it's really tough in a small firm. The large firms have the luxury of being so big. They're already into that arena where they've got really big, healthy fees coming in on projects, and they're able to pay for a lot of good quality, high-level talent. And it's just a beautiful synergy, when you get to that point. There's also a lot of negatives in a big firm that we don't need to talk about. But for us, it's really, I always take the approach of learn from others and learn from yourself so that you don't do things that have already been done incorrectly. So I don't like to make mistakes twice. I'm okay with making a mistake once. Everybody makes mistakes. I don't make them twice. And so when I'm approaching a project, first of all, I look and I see what kind of budget are we working with and what kind of client are we working with? Is this a client where we can really push and stretch and go for something really cool and innovative? Or is this a client where we just kind of need to stay in our lane a little bit more and focus on just doing a really good job for them to get them what their ultimate deliverable is? And then we just kind of ride that as we go. Some projects, we break our budget a little bit in order to go that extra mile to get them what they need. We try not to make it a habit because that's not a sustainable business practice, but sometimes it just requires it. And sometimes it really takes us to a place where we can truly meet the needs of the project. Like on our school projects, sometimes we just have to go the extra mile and we do a little bit of extra stuff because the tax dollars are the tax dollars, but the kids, they need a really quality thing. And so we'll do a little bit extra on that. Those are tough because you got to balance it at the end of the day with the construction budget too. But there's beautiful school projects out there that figure out how to put the dollars in one place to really make that a really cool experience or something to look at or whatever. And then there's other places that, we don't need to do so much here. It's much more utilitarian. So, you kind of move things around to make it work. And so for us, learning how to do that is every project is a new challenge on how to do that. And I try to pick vignettes of like a specific vignette within a project where we can do something like that. And I think most architects tend to try to do that whenever they can. And it's an opportunity to really develop and create something cool and unique without expending, the budget for the entire project. And every once in a while, you get this really cool project that just is like, we don't care. Make it what it needs to be. I've only had a couple of those my entire life. Hopefully we'll get more as we grow and we become, more of a household name for people. And then internally, it's really about striving to stay up to date with softwares and tools and ways to make that easier. When Frank Gehry first started doing all of his crazy work, he had some software that he was tapping into that was helping him to do a lot of that a lot of other people didn't have. I mean, to envision curves three-dimensionally that are like non-coplanar and not constant curves and all of this stuff that's happening, really, it's hard to do unless you're doing it with a hand model, but then you still got to translate that to construction documents, right? And then you go into that 3D model, that's where you can really start having a lot of fun. And so, we as a small firm are trying to stay up to date on having some of the best software to do that type of stuff as much as we can afford it. And for a while, we couldn't. I mean, making the jump, just to Revit took longer than most because it's a big animal to bite. Anyone who has made the jump from AutoCAD to Revit knows that it's no small task.
Yeah.
It really is a very expensive endeavor. We tried it 3 times and eventually we're able to do it successfully. And even that took a lot. I mean, it was an investment of, 18 months to really make it happen. But if you don't do those things, you get left behind. And so
Yeah.
we're looking at that with AI too. It's like we're very slow in what we do with it because we're still trying to grapple with it and understand how it's going to work for us. But that's coming, and you're starting to see things all over the place of just this next level design that's coming out of AI use. And there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to that, and I think that's one of the pushbacks that you get in architecture and art with, AI is that you're taking away that proprietariness, that comes out of creativity. And so we have to be careful with that. But it's there and we have to learn how to grapple with it. And so that's one of the things on our list. How do we do that? How do we do it? I don't know.
Yeah. And the sooner you're able to find that way and embrace it, I think the more successful you're going to be, because it is the next generation of how work is going to be done across all industries. So if you can find a way to make it work for you, the sooner the better, the more successful you're going to be. That's across every industry I could possibly think of. Yeah, AI is like taking over marketing like you would not believe. And you have to embrace it. So use it to your advantage and make it work for you. Because if you don't, like you said, you're going to get left behind. And that's not good.
Yeah.
So one final question for you.
Okay.
Looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of Archis Architects?
I want to move into a greater degree of large-scale development. I love what development does. I mean, it's really, when you think about it, that's like the goal of architecture, right? You want to create an overall environment that everybody can experience to the maximum potential. So most architects that we're able to go in and we take a little piece, of a development with this building or this house or this, little installation here, and then we're gone. And we've done our best to make our impact to the footprint of that specific item. But if you can come in on the development side, now you can cast the vision for the entire thing. And you can really strive for a level of quality across the board that was unattainable before. And you can almost learn how to craft the entire space instead of your piece of the space, right? And it doesn't mean that we would design necessarily everything. We might, but it gives the opportunity now to bring the architectural mindset to the grander scheme. To a degree, this is what's happening. You see really great developments all over the place. And that's not just somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is throwing something up. That does happen occasionally. But that's what I want to get into, because I want to be able to make a bigger impact in a more efficient way. And I feel like if we can do that, how fantastic is that? You're like, yeah, we were behind this whole community, thought everything through, all the details matter. That flyover over there was intentionally designed. It's not just getting from point A to point B with a, basic railing. No, we're doing something really cool, exciting, innovative. We've got some opportunities now to do some really cool stuff across Route 66. I don't know if you're aware, but the 100-year anniversary is in like 2 years for Route 66.
No
and so
idea.
all these towns along Route 66 are looking for opportunities to kind of make their mark to celebrate that and really continue to revive that journey down 66, which I think we're, as a country, trying not to lose, right? We don't want to lose those things, but so much of it has fallen into disrepair because of the evolution of the freeway, that's off the beaten path, and people got to get here to there within this amount of time. And so how do we draw people back to those places? How do we do really cool things? And another neat thing about Route 66 is that it's actually in the heart of communities. So it's not just a road that we're trying to get excited about. It's a shot in the arm for these small communities that really want to create more for what they're doing. And so if we can be a part of that and find some really cool opportunities to make those impacts, those types of things are a lot of fun. And so, any way that we can do those things, it's always something I'm looking forward to.
That's such a cool ending with Route 66. I love that. That drive is incredible. Haven't never had the opportunity to go all the way down Route 66, pieces and parts of it. It's definitely iconic. So hopefully people as we age or as the younger generation is looking for stuff like that is a little bit more slower paced, I wonder if there'll be a flip and there'll be a change in thought processes and saying, well, instead of taking the freeway to get there the quickest, maybe we take a diversion and we stop along the way to kind of experience what a trip is like this is supposed to be. So that's kind of cool.
That would be great. I'd love to see that.
Well, Jeremy, it has been great chatting with you. What is your website address?
We're archisarchitects.com, ARCHIS, and architects.com. Yeah, come visit us.
And can we find you on LinkedIn as well?
I am on LinkedIn personally. We don't have a company page on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So it's under me, Jeremy Ortiz. We do have Instagram presence.
Great.
We're a little weak on the socials, I must say. And that's more because I'm weak on socials personally. And so we are working at building that actively. It's in one of our processes. We have somebody doing socials for us. And so, yeah, that's one way to find us for sure. And of course, our website.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll put up your website at the end of the recording. But Jeremy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, Shannon.